everyone, welcome to this week's Let's Talk Design. This week we are talking to Danielle Brustman. Danielle is both an artist and interior designer. She's based in Melbourne and her career spans everything from residential to commercial design, including retail and hospitality, and her portfolio also extends into the art world. She has installations that have been featured in multiple exhibitions, such as at the National Gallery of Victoria and as far afield as Milan's Salone del Mobile. Danielle's work manages a perfect balance between delightfully surprising, but each of her works upholds her unique and distinctive style. She has big, bold shapes cloaked in pastels, which create an effect that feels dreamlike. And even though the overall effect of her work feels polished and elevated, it's also approachable. It always makes me want to climb into the scene and live there. I'm not alone in having a visceral reaction to Danielle's work. She has also been a finalist and won a slew of awards, including with the Australian Furniture Design Awards and the Eat Drink Design Awards. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi Renee. How you going?
I am great. Thank you for joining us. Where does this find you in the world today?
Well, I'm sitting in my studio in Collingwood in Melbourne on a fairly sort of, I don't know, it's kind of a lovely-ish kind of autumn day.
Yeah, Melbourne, because we're up in Sydney, so we miss out on that Melbourne autumnal splendour of
Yeah.
all that colour.
Yeah, it's actually quite beautiful. I mean, I also I think the light sort of changes slightly just I find at this moment each year, which I really enjoy. I find it very relaxing, actually, like almost like, oh, I can sort of settle in a little bit more and not sort of combating, the heat anymore. It's like, okay, settle in. Winter's coming. Enjoy this nice sort of break between the more extreme seasons.
That's a great way of putting it. Melbourne does do, or I think Melbourne does autumn and winter well,
Mm.
which means they do spring well, because my favourite time in Melbourne is that first warm day in October when like everyone breaks out shorts, everyone's in a beer garden. It's like throwing off blankets and ponchos and emerging back to the sun.
Yes.
It's so lovely.
Yes, totally. We have a longer haul of winter than in Sydney.
Yeah, Melbourne earns spring. Sydney just dabbles in winter. Sydney does like 3 or 4 days and they're like, oh, I don't like this at all. And then
No, I
Sydney's
know.
like, oh, okay, would you like sun? And we're like, yes, please. And it just does what it's.
They say it's a good city to create in Melbourne, I think because of the winter, really. There's not much else to do. So you may as well get in there and create your own excitement because there's not that much happening outside.
I totally agree. I describe Melbourne and Sydney. I always think of like Melbourne's a musician. She's a bit grotty, but very soulful. And Sydney is a model. She's very beautiful, but a little vacant. And
That's hilarious. She is very beautiful, Sydney.
that's why she's vegan. She's like, what? I don't need whatever. Melbourne's like chords, jumbo chords and hand rolled cigarettes, and it's a hard graft. Everything has to be like hard won, and it's gritty.
Yeah.
Can I ask how you started out in interior design? Like, how did your career begin in that industry?
I started out in the mid 90s, I think, and I went to RMIT and studied interior design. I took a longer time to finish my degree. I was a little unsettled and it's a 4-year course, but I think in the end, I'm not proud to say this, but it's true, is I ended up taking about 9 years to finish that course. I loved my course, like I loved the study of design, but when it came time to looking for a job, I just felt as though the landscape at the time didn't really appeal to me as much. And I'm not sure if it was because I was also slightly intimidated. I think I was slightly intimidated by it at the time, but it was also, at that stage, design just seemed very sort of austere and minimalist. And I just I didn't feel as though it was my place. And I sort of thought about sort of some other areas of design that I could dabble with, and I ended up doing some voluntary work with a small theatre company in Melbourne and worked as a set designer, and just kind of went, this is it. This is the world that, I belong in. I love kind of working as a designer in this space. I love the nature of theatre and spectacle and working with all these different, designers and artists and writers and performers, and it just felt like a really great fit for me. And so I did work in that area for about 10 years, but there was something, as much as I loved it, then I sort of also started to feel as though there was some part of me as a designer that wasn't completely being satiated in that realm. And I decided to give myself the opportunity to sort of try out, what might I find if I actually did tinker in interior design. And then by that stage, a lot of time had passed, and I started to see all of these interior projects and design projects from, within Australia and around the world, that sort of started to sort of feel very exciting to me. And also I really could relate to those spaces and relate to the designers and the design, and I thought perhaps this is a more kind of a suitable time for me to sort of give this a go. And I'd also matured, and I was a bit less intimidated by it, and I was ready. So I had a couple of opportunities to work on some interior design projects. My first client was an old friend, and he owned a pub in Brunswick, and he said he'd give me a shot at designing this sort of small salon upstairs on the pub, and he'd just give me free rein, go for it. This is your chance to see if you like it, give it a go. And I really went, I just went 100% into that project, and it was just this explosion for me of design and creativity. And I felt like finally I could just really unleash myself, on an entire space, and a space that would be also not necessarily a space that would be there for a longer time. And that was thrilling. And I gave my all, and I absolutely loved it. And it was a real, labor of love. Our budget wasn't huge, so I was sort of sourcing things all over the place, in op shops, on on eBay. There was a lot of mural work on the walls, and I actually did a lot of that myself. So I really got stuck in there, not just in the design process, but also in the installation of some of those parts. And from then on, I was like, yep, this is it. And I love this. Actually, now I'm ready to sort of take it on and become an interior designer, hopefully. So yeah, it sort of all started from there.
We grew up around the same time, and I finished year 12 in 95. In 96, I applied, then 95, 96, I applied at RMIT photography, didn't get in, ended up going to what used to be Brighton Bay, but it was like
Oh, I
photographic
went there
imaging studies
too.
or something. Get out of town.
I did a year there, like after high school. Well, actually, I did another course for 4 weeks, and then I went to Brighton Bay, and then I went to RMIT.
So I went to, when it was at Taronga, I was there in 96, and didn't get into RMIT photography, did that year course there. And then I applied for interior design at RMIT. I got a B letter, didn't get in. And then I went and did visual arts at Box Hill TAFE. But really similar time. And I so remember, and I'm scarred, definitely, I have war wounds, of that feeling of intimidation to the art world and to the design world. And I wanted in so bad, but I mean, it wasn't even imposter syndrome's kind of dressing it up. It was just like, because I don't know what it was. It was a really funny time in Australian history. And it was good because the art world took itself really seriously. But at the same time, there was no one climbing. I didn't feel like I could find anyone that was climbing the ladder and throwing the rope down to the person underneath. And there was never any talk of any courses that I did on commercial application. So by the end, you finish visual arts and you're like, cool. So now I'm an artist, which is not dissimilar to not being an artist. And uh, and not really. And it was wild. And so I know that feeling. And I think it's delightful that you did the 9 years at RMIT, because it meant you took time and put brackets around and stretched your legs into it, because it was really intimidating.
Yeah, and brilliant. I mean, it was amazing. I think that was the thing. It was such a kind of at the time I was there, there were so many extraordinary lecturers and they were so radical, like in their thinking and in their conceptual thinking. And I knew I loved it, but I was just like, I wasn't mature enough in a way to sort of really appreciate that freedom and that level of sort of like, how far the lecturers were prepared to go in terms of allowing their students to experiment and be quite wild in their thinking. But I'm very grateful for that now, actually, because it's like, I really think that going through that course at that time with those lecturers, it really gave me something that I feel I may not have found anywhere else. And that is just sort of like an interest in kind of, you know, pushing wilder ideas. And it's not always driven by sort of, commercial constraints or pragmatic constraints, which of course it is in real life, but just to sort of to sort of push ideas further, sometimes you have to just forget about all that stuff and just allow yourself to kind of really expand. And that is what excites me the most about design. And that is, for me, the most thrilling part of it.
That's the rub, like, because we work with design graduates and sometimes I even do talks to interior designers about to graduate about what employers are expecting. And I feel for universities. So I know the RMIT back in the glory days, like my husband did industrial design at RMIT. I know a slew of people, that whole art world back in the day, people studying graphic design, and RMIT was revered beyond Jesus. 40 people got in, 30 people survived, 10 people did honors. Like it was
Yeah.
hardcore, and the lectures were so highbrow and fancy. And I must admit, like hearing about RMIT now, it's changed a lot. I think it's a different beast now, and it's certainly dealing with graduates. And I feel for unis because they're trying to make the courses commercially applicable, and you just can't. Like I don't want a graduate that's done 50 briefs, and this is Cynthia, and Cynthia has two daughters and a dog, and they see a kitchen that this poor graduate's designed for this fake brief, because nothing will make you design more on the brief than if you are hungry. Like when money's on the table, design, it's a different beast. And yeah, all I want and we're the same as well when we approach stuff, like money's nowhere near the first constraint of a design process. Like we've got to get the solution first. The money is way later. And that's what I would love any graduate to come to us. I just want them to be curious with a critical mind and ideally know how stuff is made. That would be my interiors. That's
Yeah.
less sky hooks would be ideal.
Yeah. We used to do some really fun. We had some very fun studios. I remember like one studio we were making models out of fish bones. I don't know, we had to collect all these fish bones and then sort of we'd come back and we'd bring like all our fish bones into class. Yeah, and have like a model making workshop with these we'd had from our dinner the night before. It was so fun. It was so great. I mean, I guess it's also that thing of that crossover between, you know, a design course that is also actually sort of, is it an art course? Is it a design course? Like just sort of tinkering in those spaces where, it is, we had those opportunities to sort of be quite, to use other materials as well, unconventional materials. That was very fun.
Yeah, holding space for that. Yeah, and giving that a crack is so fun. I love it when there's a folio that it was she was a submission, I think, in the Gotcha Awards years ago through the GIA. And this photographer was collecting old silver gelatin negatives and then melting out the silver out of them and making jewelry with the silver.
Wow.
I resplendent. I was like, whoa, the places you have gone to learn how to do that is beyond admirable.
Amazing. Yeah, incredible.
And I know as well, like certainly studying photography, we really felt, and even when I was at secondary school, like we felt like back in the day, it felt like we were in the art movement. It was like, there was Mapplethorpe, Leibovitz and us, and we were doing stuff and, you know, studio shoots or, 16-hour shoots where you'd have to be in the same spot. I remember picking, Fitzroy, Brunswick Street and just being there from like 5 a.m. back in the day when like Rumparellas and stuff was open,
Yeah.
and watching the street come alive when Brunswick Street was very, the 90s was a great time. And yeah, it makes me really nostalgic. Thank you, Danielle. I haven't felt that fondly to Melbourne for a while.
I know. I haven't thought about it that much recently either, but it was fun. They were fun times. They were interesting times, and there was so much learn. I just felt like I learned, like my mind was just being blown all the time, really. This idea of possibilities, and I don't know. It's just such a different life. We lead such a different life. We're so kind of consumed with technology and our devices, and we don't. I don't, even though as much as I'd like to, I don't digest the world around me in the same way because I'm spending so much of my time, you know, online or on a screen, and there's a sadness around that. Like our senses are slightly deprived, I think.
Our senses aren't as fast as our brain. Well, they are, but as in the mind, like the mind loves going at a million miles an hour. So when you like we walked to and from work, and last night I walked home. It's like a K and a half, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put my earphones in. I'm just going to walk and
Hmm.
absorb. And my brain the whole time was like, well, this is a waste of time. You could be listening to something. God, this is boring. Oh, you were walking. It's like all of 12 minutes, my brain was like,
Yeah. Did you like it? Was it good? Did you enjoy it?
It's brilliant. It was brilliant because when I got home, across the road from us is an art gallery. And the art gallery at the moment has a bright blue exhibition in there. It's beautifully lit, small art gallery. And the sun was setting behind it with pinky purple sky and then the bright blue interior. And not my favorite thing, but the lime bikes were out the front with the little green lights on. So it was this little green, blue, and sunset disco, which I
Oh,
wouldn't have clocked if I had have had my earphones in.
oh, how lovely.
Speaking of color, may I ask, I have a few opinions on where your inspiration comes from, unsolicited, but I'm curious, was your, I could say visual inspiration, but also emotive? Where do you draw your inspiration from? Where are your pots?
I've had to think about this question a little bit, and I don't know the answer to that because I think it's a combination of different things. I think there is definitely something innate that comes from within, but obviously I'm also deeply sort of inspired and excited by many things, but you know, I have an innate sense of color that is kind of like I feel very affected by sort of, I mean, I think everyone is affected by color, but I sort of almost, I get distressed if I don't like a color, like it really bothers me. And I think that's the case for a lot of visually kind of, orientated people, but it has to make me feel, there has to be some sort of like balance or imbalance or contrast or sort of an energy level that makes me feel a feeling that I enjoy. And it can also make me feel something that I don't enjoy. So I guess my pursuit of color is to find sort of intricate combinations that both thrill and and excite me as well as bring me a lot of joy. So that's what I'm sort of seeking when I'm putting colors together. But I'm also just, I know that like I think, in terms of other references, I mean, I just love I love 1960s, 1970s design across, art, music, architecture, furniture, fashion, all of it. That is the most sort of, for me, like, the most sort of thrilling realm of reference that I kind of always look towards that for inspiration. I think it was Simone Leomon mentioned this to me one time, was that even the cars in those days were all bright colours, so it was just everything was coloured. Like,
Oh my God, I think about this all the time. Like, our conservative times now. Like there's this particular sort of car, it's a 71 Ford, and the colors it came out in was surfer orange, wild violet, silver fox, like even the names yellow glow, yellow ochre, Monza green, just true blue was so much more romantic and creative. And I would never have thought, having grown up in those times, I would be saying that. But now everything, and I sound like an old lady, but I just feel like the homogeny of design and also the obsession with functionality ahead of ornateness it's breaking my heart.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Although they are starting to paint cars colours again. They're
Yes.
very, very fancy though. It's not sort of, it's not like your everyday car. It's like these like souped up, extra special VIP blah blah model, and it's like, let's just start painting the cars again. Get rid of this silver,
Yeah.
this black opal sheen, and like let's paint them, aqua again.
Yeah, it makes me kind of long for that. Do you know what works beautifully? Because mother of pearl never works well in gloss on cars, but it works beautifully when they do it in matte finish. Mother
Yes,
of pearl and matte finish is a vibe.
it's true. It is a vibe. I do like the matte cars. I think that's kind of a bit
Mm.
exciting, a bit sexy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what else is weird with cars is that like you can love a color, but not all colors work on all things. Like I love pink, but
Yeah,
I've never seen a pink car that even like a pink Cadillac, I'm like, oh, Pepto-Bismol, no, 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 no. It's
yeah.
funny how color can't do like, yeah, it's weird. Hey.
It is true. And it's also that thing of like, because I also really love color in terms of, wearing color, and there's a lot of colors that I love as objects or to view, on a wall or a paint color, but I would never wear that color. Like the color would just feel really awful on me, but I like to look at it. It's just all these curious sort of like little ideas I have or we all have about color, about what works and what doesn't work. And it is subjective, I mean, everybody has their own sense of colors and what they mean and how they make you feel, which is also what's so interesting about it.
I think I would temper that though with it is subjective, but sometimes secretly there's right and wrong. Like red and
Mm,
brown, no, cannot. Like just no.
mm. Yeah, see, that's interesting, isn't it? Like, because I actually I think there's definitely right and wrong for me, but sometimes I like it when someone will do something and I'll go, "Oh, I would never have put that together or thought that would work," but then somehow it does because there's also the layering of materiality and light and space and all of those things kind of also affect color in such a huge way. So which is why as a spatial designer, it's so interesting with color being one of your sort of, well, color being a tool and a really important tool because it's like it might work on a little swatch, but then as soon as you put it into a room and light is hitting it and it's kind of, it's bouncing in a certain way or there's other elements to the space that affect it so much. So it is such a kind of wonderful puzzle to kind of take these, take this palette that you've kind of come up with and actually sort of start to sort of place it in real space and add to it and take away from it. And I mean, we all know that thing. Well, I don't know if we all know that thing, but I have had the awful, awful, awful experience of being, of specifying a color and then walking in and going, that was not a good choice.
I know you walk where angels feet are tread. That is, when I see you do those bold interiors with bold colors, and so because we do commercial design, so we have the added bonus that the brand is in the brief, and
Yeah.
it's if we did a Cadbury store, we're never going to do a Cadbury store orange. It's always going to be Cadbury purple. So part of that is it's lovely and it's easier. Whereas when specifying any wall color that's not natural white or go nuts lexicon quarter like
Yeah.
it terrifies. Like I just think you're so bold and glorious. Like your envisaging skills are next level.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice. But I do get it. Sometimes it works, and sometimes, I mean, I try really hard to get it to work. I do because it's this the word. I mean, it's a terrible expense if you don't get it right, and people have to live with it, and it's their business or their home. So it is so important to kind of get it right. And I've learnt my lesson and I do a lot of testing. I do a lot of kind of, even, whenever I'm specifying as well, it's like, this has to be tested on the wall. It is always to be confirmed on site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And especially with product, the color could be a-okay, but if it's accidentally done in satin and not matte,
Yeah.
it's, a whole different thing. And I always see that when I see people, and I have a hunch, because I don't know if you get this as well, like you walk into any environment, and it can tell, like the walls will start to tell you what happened here in a good or a bad way.
Yeah.
And, like we actually, we've overspent here. You can see, somebody specified like some light fitting that's busted the budget, and then we had to patchwork together the rest of the project. Or when you see a gloss ceiling, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
whoo, that's a choice. like,
It
like
is.
really,
It's a
that's a whole,
brave
like that's
choice.
speaking so bold. And sometimes you see commercial interiors like hospitality with it. I'm like, oh, okay, you just went for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a brave choice. I've actually just specified one, but I think the builder is suggesting we don't do it, and I'm sort of really having to think it through. Just really, really, should I? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not so
You
sure.
should. You should definitely. What color gloss is it?
It's a lilac,
Oh,
like a violet.
the color that popped into my head was peacock green. So I'm pivoting.
No, it's
That
a
is beautiful.
yeah. It could be good. It could look beautiful, but I mean, I think that's the thing. Is it? I mean, that's the other thing. I do love playing around with gloss and matte, and there's something so beautiful about the play in terms of reflection and light, and that's another tool. I mean, we have all these lovely little tricks of the trade, and it's nice to play with those. Even just that subtle change of like a gloss finish or a matte finish can just make a huge difference in a space.
100%. But getting back to your inspiration, when I look at your work through my lens, I feel the 60s and 70s, but what I feel more so is the 70s. I feel a sniff of Barbarella. I feel a whack of Xanadu. And
Yes.
now I'm feeling overtones of Geo Memphis.
Yes, no, definitely. And I mean, I think that's also, I mean, there, all of those references are absolutely there. I mean, another thing that I didn't mention earlier, but I kind of know I carry it around with me, and is that, like, I think when you're young, like when you're a child, you're sort of absorbing your environment in a really acute way. And I also grew up when as a child in the 1980s. And so there's also like kind of those kind of references, like the Xanadu was my favorite film when I was, 10. And I loved Memphis, and I was obsessed with the clothing brand Esprit when I was like a
Oh,
10,
yes.
11, 12-year-old girl. And I didn't realize until recently that actually, like, like Ettore Sotzis designed, some of those stores. And so that whole kind of Memphis design element was so kind of embedded through that brand, and or that clothing brand. And it's interesting how sort of you sort of think about that later on. It's like, oh, well, of course I love that. Like, of course that's sort of become a source of inspiration for me, and it even made sense to me when I was a kid. And maybe that's just because I liked it innately, or maybe it's also because it's sort of representative of that time or that period or that era where I was young and kind of becoming excited about, like clothing, or I was always interested in buildings even from a very young age. And my favorite thing to do with my dad was, this is like when I was about 12, or 12, even maybe, I think 12 or 13, is that we just drive around Melbourne looking at interesting buildings. And that was like my favorite thing to do when I was a kid, and he loved it as well. So it was kind of, we just would go on these like, yeah, like architectural spotting missions. It was fun. So, yes, all of those references you mentioned are absolutely very key. Yeah.
I can feel them as launching points. And like I said in your intro, you have these bold shapes, not always, but they can be often enclaved in more of a pastel range, which helps them harmonize in the space. But the spaces you create, I want to be in them. Like they feel so elevated. I think that's absolutely your signature, is the tactility, and you feel safe in the space, and not that you'd be imposing, but almost that you'd be playing. Like it's almost, and I can see, of course, it's the set design, like the theater design coming through as well. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I want to go on that space and I want to play in it.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's, I want every space that I design to feel good and to feel welcoming. Like, I don't want my spaces to feel like, I don't know, like elitist or difficult to sort of penetrate. It's like I want them to all feel like they're a warm place where you can go, you can be yourself, you can kind of enjoy the space and you can be happy inside the space. That's what I'm hoping for spaces that I design. So it's lovely to hear that you feel that you would like to be inside them and that they, yeah, that's really nice to hear.
It totally translates, and it invites one part of me to want to play, but
Mm,
it's not dissimilar to in the olden days or still now, like the good room. And the good room invites a different version of yourself forward, and that's to me, it's a really good thing. Like, it's where the good furniture is or the good rug is, and I like that as well because you kind of pull yourself up, and that's what your spaces, I think, do. Is it invites play,
mm.
and I think there's not enough of that. I love that you're exploring and creating spaces that we can explore different parts of ourselves of, which I know is such a quick one-liner and it sounds so glib, and it's the opposite of that. It's like, you're saying about us being sensitive to our surroundings is when we're in office spaces with overhead fluorescent lighting.
Mm.
It's a real downer, but we've got this is my professional space. And so this is what kind of has to be here. So it's lovely to be able to like have different spaces to play different parts of ourselves out in.
I mean, it's interesting that like that word play. I love that word play, and there is also, and I do know this about my work, and maybe I know it about myself, but you know there is that sort of like element of kind of you know nostalgia and childhood and kind of there's a sort of lightness to it as well. For me also there's a sense of escapism and fantasy as well. So it's almost like create spaces where you might be in a sort of fairly you might feel bored or you might feel sad or you might feel all these things that you don't want to feel, but then space can kind of create this realm for yourself and for your soul to sort of kind of break beyond what's going on outside in the world, and you get the opportunity to kind of create your own experience in your own space. And yeah, there's something about childhood and imagination and it's sort of living in a sort of in your own sort of heightened version of something that's really delightful and lovely and it's yours and you create it. There's something about that too, which is also play and make believe and I like all of those. I like those ideas, and I like when they start to sort of play into design and interior design as well.
Yes, it's the illusion. And that's everything to me with design is the illusion, the smoke and mirrors. It's like drag, in the
Yeah,
words of RuPaul, we're all naked and the rest is drag. Like, how can we drag up the room and have that? And it's hard. I live in that like as much as I can keep that fantasy because like it's fun coming to work and play. Like sometimes I do pretend typing because I think it's so fun. I'm so busy right now
mm.
because like it's fun to just have a bit of a play and do that. And yeah, I don't know if everyone does this. I don't know if you did it, but like, it's like when you're at school and you sit in assembly and you just think, I could just get up and start singing and nothing is stopping me. But what's stopping me is everyone's pretending this is normal. I'm like, we're all sitting in a little weird room facing the front, listening to the Madrigals torture some song to death. Yeah, okay. And everyone's like, did I sign away? Did I have to sign this? Like, could I just face the other way? But it's funny, like with these social norms, and sometimes they pick up such speed that play and theatre and illusion gets lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I really love those. I love sort of dabbling in those realms, and I think that's also why, kind of, when I, left uni and sort of found theatre, like it's like, oh, this is great because this is all about make believe. This is sort of, this is about imagination. This is about sort of other worlds that you can occupy for a short period of time, which, really appealed to me.
It's the homogenization because AI has to sit from one source, and that's the internet. So whatever's online that's getting likes, AI, I assume, is trained to go check for a source. So I see it in design, especially commercial design, where it's a one-off like companies that have small folios, so they do one-off designs per concept if it's retail or hospitality particularly. And because like it's, like arches, fluting, pastels, and it is on trend, but also I think it's the homogenization because the stores, a donut store is looking pretty similar sometimes to a jewelry store because it's the same aesthetic, and I think it's
Yeah.
coming out of AI.
Yeah. Or it's just that thing of like, well, just trends, like it's seductive to buy into a trend as well. Like, I think it actually requires a lot of restraint and awareness not to, because we're sort of, you know, we're inundated with them, and it's hard sometimes. Like, you sort of, it's like with any trend. It's like you sort of hate it when you see it, and then all of a sudden, a year later, you're thinking it looks good. It's just that the sort of power of repetitive saturation is eventually you're convinced as well that it's a good idea. I think you have to sort of really kind of check yourself sometimes, like to go, no, that I don't really, just no, let's break free from that trend.
Yeah, I feel like that's still about boucle upholstery on those big overstuffed lounge suites and armchairs. I cannot,
Can't do it.
cannot. And the more I see it, the more I'm like, okay, I get it. Still cannot.
Still can't do it. No, fair enough. You don't have to. It is very hard. I mean, it is really hard to kind of to sort of try to do something that is your own idea. It is so hard because it's tough, to actually have an original idea, like to really kind of land on something and you're like, wow, this is fresh. Like, this isn't something that I've seen or heard of. It's like, and that's very exciting when you do occasionally go, that's I haven't seen that. And then sometimes you Google and you're like, has this happened? And then you'll find it somewhere anyway.
Yeah. In
Everything's
science,
already
they call
happened.
that, in science, they call like when two scientists find the same result in the same time frame, it's called multiple findings, I think, where, like they split the atom at the same time, or like it's a scientific
Interesting.
phenomena. And so sometimes I think as well, like it's just
Yeah.
in the ether and we pull it through at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. And especially that, like, now that we're all looking at the same imagery and it's being sent to us as well. So it's like we're all tapping into these same references and, ideas and visuals. So, of course, then the next step is a certain thought or a certain trend or a certain color. And it's hard to kind of, resist it. It's
Mm.
really hard.
Yeah, and it's hard not to have baggage. Like, I really admire the way that you handle burgundy and maroon because I'm like ye old 1980s Victorian times, still too soon. I cannot with,
Yeah.
but yeah, you handle it so beautifully. Oh my God, because can we talk about your record player? What is that piece of magnificence?
Oh, that's a one-off. That's actually in my lounge room now, but that was designed for the redesign prize at the NGV. So for the space that I designed there, or the installation I designed there, which was absolutely mostly inspired by the movie Xanadu. And I and there was, it was kind of this space which was part lounge room, part conversation pit, part sort of performance stage. And I almost could imagine, it could almost be a roller rink. Like, it just had all of those sort of wonderful references from that film inside that little space. But I was very determined to have music in the space as well. And I love listening to vinyl, and there was just bringing in that sort of element to the interior just seemed like a really lovely addition. So yeah, we just designed this like custom. I designed a custom sort of unit for this record player that I actually bought. So I actually bought the turntable part, which didn't kind of have any casing inside of it. So it meant that I could create this sort of cylindrical unit that the player sat inside of. And it was, yeah, and then I made this soundtrack. Because it was actually, sorry, this is the smoke and mirrors. Of course, you can't play a record in an installation because someone would have to stand there all day long and change it over. But we had the record on and it was spinning on it, constantly. But then I had a sort of a playlist playing underneath it. So yeah, I made this playlist that was about, because the space was blue, a light. Well, it was actually a combination of sort of light blues and light violets and light lilacs. So every song that was played on the playlist had to either be it had to either have the title had to have the word blue in it, or it kind of reminded me of the color blue. And it was just there as the background. No one else. I've never said that aloud, but but it was in there.
Oh, I love that. Sometimes I just think that's so great, especially about the playlist and that level of detail. And that's what I want to bring it back to as well, is when you're talking about the Esprit stores and Esprit itself and how it was designed. All of everything you said absolutely could be true. It was of the time, you were into fashion, it's coming of age, but also I think you can just feel when it's right, and you can feel when it's been designed well with love and considered, and it comes
Yeah.
through. And the same with the 80s when that
Yes.
brand Look, I think it was Look Cycling, they and there was a hair product brand that, ripped off Mondrian, that the squares, the yellow and blue and red squares. And I didn't know Mondrian in the 80s, but I knew those two brands. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah. And then, then you find out about Mondrian, and you're like, oh, I see Mondrian did this. And okay, yeah, cool, cool. Well played. And you can just feel it. So like, even though the people
Yeah.
wouldn't have necessarily picked up on the blue and the playlist, everything you layered into the back
Yeah.
feels good at the front, and you don't even, it's like
Is in
underlay
there.
under carpet. You don't even know why you feel
Yes.
luxury, other than your feet are sinking into the floor and it's responsive.
Yes, yes. And I think that's also sort of a lovely thing about creating an entire space, because designing space is complex and there are so many elements and so many layers and so many intricacies. And as you say, like, the people occupying those spaces don't always know like every single tiny like miniature detail in terms of what thinking has gone into placing that or choosing that or positioning that. But with it from the designer's perspective, it's like it's actually quite an intricate, tale that you are weaving. And you're writing, for me anyway, I almost see it like that. Like you're sort of writing, you're composing a piece of music, you're composing a story, or you're composing all of these elements and putting them all together, and then you deliver it. And it's like this is sort of like such a kind of intricate, interwoven, complex scheme of things. And it's a space, and you can be in it and you can live in it, and it functions and it's practical and it does all of these things. But then there are all these layers of sort of, intricate thought that are embedded. And yes, I think that those things, even if they're not known, can be felt. And yeah, and that's beautiful, like that you can embed ideas, thoughts, feelings within your design, and whether or not that person knows all of those things or not, they feel it. And that's quite a beautiful thing,
Yeah, and it comes
I
back
think.
to that people being sensitive in and to their surroundings,
Yeah,
even without knowing it. Like even if you just paint a line on a floor, people will naturally follow it without realizing they're doing it. And it's just a litmus in, of course, you're sensitive to your surroundings, but we kind of get that beaten out of us a little bit. I'm back on the fluoro carpet squares and fluorescent tiles would be the death of me, because they're so practical and down to earth, and they're so awful.
yes,
And same with those awful, remember when LEDs first joined the scene, and I swear people were getting divorced and not realizing it's just the lighting change that in their homes
yeah,
just broke their hearts, and they had to get like, I can't look at you anymore because the downlighting is killing me. And remember the refresh rate was
yeah,
really bad, and well, that's the LED more so, but that fluoro purple pretending to be warm. And yeah, if I could have one wish for everyone, it would be make it like, can you get this, like yoga, meditation, can you be 10% more comfortable in your space?
yeah. I mean, that's true. And we do have to sort of, so many spaces are unfriendly and not designed for kind of, I don't know, not designed for us. Like we're in them all the time. And the lighting's awful. It gives you a headache. I mean, some people, and the air conditioning, and like all, we're having to sort of battle this sort of built world. And it is such a relief when you find yourself in a space that makes you feel good.
Yeah, and to me, that is the epitome. Like, that's the meaning of luxury. It's not necessarily expense. It's the expense of someone has spent time making all these decisions for me, so I don't need to. And I can just, and that is a luxurious moment when that is taken out of my hands and I can just sit on the, and
Yes.
that's what with your rigs exhibit is, that's what it is. That's a pure luxury moment. That's why it resonates so beautifully. It's because every detail is taken care of and I don't need to have my eyes doing side eye. Like, am I going to see how the sausage is made?
Yeah, I know it is. It's true. It's true. I mean, it's funny. We don't talk about that very often, I don't think, but it does have a profound effect on someone's day,
Mm.
the spaces they kind of move in and out of. I have friends who can't work in certain light, like they can't cope with it. Like I feel like I'm quite robust, actually. I mean, it's like I'm sensitive, but I'm also I can handle sort of awful lighting, like I can deal with it. But I have friends who just cannot, like they're like they just they just can't. They can't function. They can't do anything. Just sends them around the bend.
Yeah. I'm the same. I'm hardy as well. Like I can work in an environment and I can work in a massive mess, but I feel I come across as more high drama or more sensitive. My husband Chris comes across as low key, chill, and his desk is as neat as a pin. Like any
Um,
disharmony in the house as well. Like because he hates knickknacks and things, and Isla and I love doing the vignettes through the house. But so the vignettes is always a moment of contention because we're all so sensitive to our surroundings. And I know, and it's hard as well because you can't really say that easily to people. But this is years and years ago. I lived in New Zealand in the South Island, and they had these stop signs, and they were. And I went to the doctor about this, which was I had to go to the doctor about other stuff, but I spoke to him about it. He thought I was insane. But their stop signs are a bright red circle, regular, and then in the inside is filled with cobalt blue, and then the red goes like an X across the blue, and there's no white in between. So the red and the blue are vibrating against each other, and it made me feel nauseous. Even just thinking about it makes me feel sick. Like, and yeah, because it's that. I know what you mean with that sensitivity. Like if the light is wrong, oh, like if you go to a restaurant and the light is too bright or it's in your eyes, and I just feel like grabbing the restaurateur and being like, you need to sit down and have your eyeballs burnt out like ours are. Because no amount, like, who cares
yeah.
what's on the plate? My eyes are being burnt out by some pendant that's in the
Yes.
wrong spot and it's blinding, peppering me with its LED bullet lights that haven't been sheathed properly.
I know, and you have to sort of stop yourself from giving unsolicited advice wherever you go. I go to this nice restaurant that I really love, and I have the same thought. And I actually did, like, not because I was like, I did offer myself. I just said, "Oh, I'd really love to help to do something with this space." I couldn't help myself. I was just like, this person was so fantastic, and their restaurant was great. The food was great, but there was no one in there. And I actually did say to them, you have cold globes in your overhead lighting. Like it was just sort of, it was an old school restaurant. Like, oh, I said, even if you just change that globe around to warm, it'll help. People will, feel more kind of, like as though they're being invited inside. So this, I do go out giving unsolicited advice, but he's like, oh, thanks, I'll do that.
I'm the same. I wish that we could be given like a cape and a beret and a clipboard, and so we're in uniform, and then people know we're coming. But because that's why I'm going back to that subjective. Like lighting is subjective, but kind of that cold lighting in a restaurant is wrong. But and like when it changes, it's so lovely that it's hard not to give unsolicited advice. I think more of it.
Yeah.
But harking back to the NGV, you have an exhibition there at the moment called Let's Party. And yeah, I think it's so exquisite. It's for kids to play, which naturally with kids comes parents, so everybody's getting involved. How was the process of working with the NGV to bring it alive? And how did you find the exhibition in general? Like, hit me.
Oh, it's the process of working on that project has just been so wonderful and so fun. The teams there are just brilliant, and coming in like as a sort of guest designer, because they have sort of, they obviously have an incredible group of people who work there on exhibition design. But it's amazing to come in and sort of be supported by their team of curators and exhibition designers and installers and builders, because they're all, they're really, they're incredible. So it was a very joyous experience. The brief itself was kind of like, a gift to me. Like, I just couldn't believe that was the brief. I was just, you want me to design a party for kids at the NGV? Like, it's just, and it's about fashion, and there's going to be a disco, and it was just like the most glorious, joyous brief ever. I have been working in the last few years in early education design as well. So that's sort of become quite a large part of my practice, actually, like designing early learning centres. So I am in the zone of thinking of children as clients in general. So it just sort of seemed like this is sort of the most fun kind of exercise one can do to design a space for kids. And I do think about this a lot with any space that's designed for young people, is that it has to kind of appeal to everyone. You know what I mean? So, like, you want to ignite the imagination of a young child, but at the same time, there's also always going to be a guardian or a parent or a teacher with that child. So for me, it's just as important to create an environment that's pleasing for the adult as well. So this space especially, it was just kind of like, this is a space designed for children and play, but I want to hang out in there myself. So it has to sort of please, it has to please everyone, because there's going to be so many families that go through. And yeah, it was just thrilling, because there was this fantastic collection. Because also the unusual thing about this installation at the Kids Gallery was it was also an exhibition. So it wasn't just an interactive place, learning space, play space, which often those installations are. It was also, they were going to have an exhibition specifically for children within the interactive installation space. So there's this wonderful fashion exhibition that's been curated there by the team there, and it's specifically about kind of outfits that people might wear to go and to dress up to go to a party. That was the premise of the brief, was you're arriving at this space, you're inspired by these wonderful clothes and costumes and fashion designers, and then you are going to get your opportunity to sort of play dress ups and go to this party. So we also have costumes that have been designed that the kids can wear, which are these sort of pullover lightning bolt and heart glitter costumes. And then there's a party hat that the kids get to make and design and put stickers all over. And so there's this ritual aspect of being in the installation and getting dressed up to go to a party. And then within the centre of the space is this disco where you can dance, and there's like a DJ booth, so the kids have some sort of capacity to kind of change the music, and they're sort of, they're playing DJ, and then they get to play and dance in the space. And then there's another art activity as well as like this sort of, interactive photo booth. So the big thing about this, when I was thinking about this space, or we were all thinking about it, was very much a collaboration with the team there. But a really important factor was kind of how some kids will really go wild in a space, and some kids are a little bit more shy and reserved. And so we wanted to allow for all of those different types of personalities. So within the space, there's quiet elements, and there's sort of moments where they can sit and draw and be reflective, and that's also reflected in the kind of materials that are in those spaces. Like, there's a beautiful carpet, and there's sort of like gentle sort of but rich tone. So it is kind of quite a sort of comforting sensorial experience of being in some of those, more quiet spaces. And then there's the sort of wild disco space where the kids do go a bit wild and they're having the time of their life, and that's also reflected in the material. So in that space, there's a lot of mirror, high gloss, rotating disco balls. It's like a purple colour, so it's very bold and strong. So in a way, the materials also kind of help describe what kind of activity is happening in the different zones. And yeah, it seems to be going really well, and the kids are just having a ball in there. Like it's one thing to sort of design a space with children in mind, but then to actually sit in there just as an observer, just watching them, just having so much fun. It's just been very rewarding and a real joy.
That's the best. And it again, because it's you imbibing the space with the luxury of all the decisions made and all the sensitivities, bringing your sensitivity to ensure that everyone else's sensitivities are handled with care as well. There's all of that, which is exquisite. And then on top of that, did you ever think in your lifetime or my lifetime the NGV would do that? Like back in, I mean, I love the NGV, like I love the NGV, but I remember before it was renovated, it was before even before I knew what brutalism was. It's an archetypal example of brutalism, and we had the water wall, and
Yeah.
the window is the best. But I remember when the inside courtyard had no glass over it, it was really like Henry Moore in a concrete cast had a baby, and that was the NGV.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's certainly kind of become a place where, so many people, I mean, the visitation is just enormous, and it is designed to kind of, facilitate such a kind of broad demographic of people. There are so many like locals that go there. There are so many international people that go. There are so many kind of visitors to Melbourne, and it really is, it's such a fun place to be. There really is something for everyone, and there is so much consideration given to the people that go there. And what's so beautiful about this program is there's an entire kind of space and program specifically dedicated to creating installations for children and young people and families. And it's constant, like, that's an ongoing and a really important part of their program. And so many people go to visit it. And I thought about that a lot because I was very lucky when I was growing up in that my grandmother was really into the arts, and she used to take me to see things, like she used to take me to the NGV when I was a kid. She used to take me to see the theatre. She used to take me to the ballet. And I know that that's sort of a very fortunate position to be in. And certainly not, so many people don't get access to those spaces when they're young. And I think that the NGV is doing a great job of kind of like really kind of allowing young people in Melbourne to become very familiar and comfortable at the gallery, which means that the gallery becomes a space that they will sort of visit throughout their lives. And I think that's absolutely wonderful that from a very young age, the NGV has become a place that kids that's just part of their holiday. It's like, I'm going to the gallery. This is, a very comfortable and familiar place for me to be. And I just think that the rollout of that and the impacts of that is so wonderful, because it's going to be it's so inspiring for kids. And then it's sort of, yeah, who knows what might come from those experiences of visiting the gallery or visiting those installations. Like, it's a lovely thought to think that, you can create something that will inspire a very young person as well.
I was going to ask you about the experience of navigating between the art world and the design world. To me, they're two quite separate industries, but you are weaving the two together. And I think that's amazing. Is there anything that you've learned from one industry that you bring to the next consciously? Or I feel like you're more of a creative vessel and the projects are just coming through.
I mean, I think I definitely bring my designer hat through with me wherever I go. I know certainly, like, it's helpful, like, especially like, working at a place like the NGV, creating an installation. It's helpful that because I'm used to sort of, I have to communicate as a designer what is going to be built. So we have our sort of, our ways of doing that, and, hopefully get better and better at being able to communicate. So I certainly bring those skills with me to an environment that's sort of, more an art space or an installation space. So it's like I can hand over a set of drawings that are kind of easy for somebody to understand and to read. And I think that's quite helpful. Or even like in an exhibition context, like sort of, if I'm creating objects or pieces of furniture, etc., in a gallery, it's like I'm always thinking about the exhibition design. It's like I'm always thinking about the space. So I sort of bring that side of my brain to my more sort of like artistic kind of, exhibitions, whereas that's sort of perhaps more of a skill set that I can bring, and there's which is an interesting crossover as well. So I'm always designing the space. So even if I'm thinking, even if my job is to design an object, I can't help but want to design the space that houses that object.
Yeah, I'm totally the same. Hence, back to the unsolicited advice is clients come and like,
Yes.
they want a fixture or, a store-in-store or something designed. But I'm like, but, we should think about like, what are the sight lines when they see far away, and can we layer this up, and can this be? And I'm like, just stay easy, Renee, stay in your lane. Like, it's very hard. It's,
Yeah.
because it's environmental, it's 3D and it's tactile. It has a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, but I feel like, I feel very fortunate that I've had those opportunities to exhibit work, because that wasn't my intention. I didn't sort of think that was going to happen. Like, it wasn't even part of it just sort of did happen quite organically. And I'm very grateful that it's happened, because I love it. Like, I absolutely love working sort of outside of, my studio office as an interior designer. I absolutely love working in an exhibition context. Like, it's a sort of it's a newish thing for me in a way. It's only been happening for the last kind of, I don't know, maybe, well, now it's about 6 or 7 years, but it's a real thrill each time. And it's a real honor to kind of exhibit your work publicly, and as an interior designer, that's not necessarily what you do. Like, you work for clients and it's a private exercise, whereas creating something for the general public is like, it's quite an honor and a gift to be able to reach such a broad audience and such a big audience. I love being able to do that, and I really appreciate all of those opportunities that have come my way doing those things.
Yeah, and you're really at the forefront because I'm really critical. Well, so, with art galleries, and just for argument's sake, with the NGV, the decorative, first of all, they call it decorative arts, which ever since I was a kid, I'm like, I don't understand why the carved ostrich egg is second tier. Why is there art and then decorative arts? It felt diminutive. I didn't think of it in that term, but certainly I felt it.
Mm,
And then also the design items, objects, used to live up in the top left corner, says that Aero high heel, the Bauhaus furniture's there, and it's dusty, and it's not dusty, but it just feels metaphorically dusty. And I always felt very uneasy with art's relationship with design and commerciality. And what you're doing is unifying them, and you're right at the front lines, and it's so exciting. And the NGV, is a willing partner of this. And I think that's amazing. And I need to, I need to let my guard down and give some people a second chance, because not because I love art, like I love art, that's all good. But I do feel like the art world for some time, and I can't, boxing at shadows, but sometimes there's this
mm,
looking down on craft, and there's a looking down on the maker, the artisan. And
mm,
I'd be excited if they all be harmonized back up to a top. Like when I
mm.
applied for interior design at RMIT, they looked at my photography portfolio and they were like, do you really think photography is an art? Like, do you, and where do you stand on highbrow and lowbrow art? And I mean, I wasn't foreign to the concepts. I'd heard about it before, but, in hindsight, I don't think they're asking that of the applicants anymore. So I think I need to move on.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff is just sort of, and I have to say, I don't know, as I've gotten a little bit older, I used to get more intimidated by things and people, and I still do. Sometimes I do, but I sort of just also think that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, as a general kind of, motto. And so you may as well just do what you love, or you may as well seek out those things and sort of, try to kind of like not let your heart be dampened by, somebody being a bit sort of saying something that's a bit, off or unfriendly. It's just like, No, don't. I try not to take those things on too much. Of course, I do sometimes. It's hard not to, but I just feel like you can go around like you can do the right thing all the time by everyone else, and someone will still sort of criticize you or try and pull you down. Like it's just like you just have to kind of just keep at it. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do. Yeah,
Yeah, you're
yeah.
fighting the good fight in the best way, and we're the benefactors of your good work. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Renee. Thank you.
Gorgeous. Before we wrap up, I ask this of everybody, but if you could, I mean, as detailed or as glib as whatever bangs your gong, but what does design mean to you?
Well, design, I guess, is it's everything. It's the way we kind of relate to the world around us. It's present in all of our actions. It's present in the way we live. Just an important part of being, you know, human and living in a society and living in a built environment. We engage with design all the time. So we may as well sort of, really kind of invest all of our heart and soul into making it as kind of positive as we can.
Projects wise, what have you got next on the horizon?
An early learning space in Sydney, which is with some clients who I've been working with for several years. And I'm also designing an ice cream shop, which I'm very excited about. They're my two sort of main interior design projects that are going on at the moment, as well as Design Week, which is coming up. And I'm hosting an exhibition and it's a shop actually inside of my studio called the Super Hot Shop, and I've invited about it's actually grown, it's huge. I've invited there's about 60 local designers and artists who are exhibiting works. Yeah, everything is I'm going to paint my studio bright red, and I've asked all of the designers to either make an object or a piece in red or talk to kind of catchphrases along the lines of hot mess, hot flush, hot rod, hot topic, hot stuff. So it's a very playful brief. And yeah, and so that's going to be open to the public in May. It opens on the 15th of May, actually, over Design Week. So I'll be in the studio every day so you can come by and have a squeeze.
Oh, fantastic. Melbourne Design Week this year, May the 15th, kicking off at your studio in Collingwood. If that's okay with you, I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be down in Melbourne at that point. I would love to come and see it. That would really bang my gong.